He walked into the city's most luxurious restaurant wearing beat-up sneakers and a hoodie. The waitress took one look and sneered, "Are you sure you can afford this place?" What she didn't know? That man owned the restaurant, and by the time the night was over, she wouldn't just regret her words. She'd face the most powerful, humiliating lesson of her life. This is the story of how silent power speaks the loudest. The golden hues of dusk bathed Manhattan's Upper East Side as the bustling elite moved like clockwork into the heart of elegance. El Royale, a five-star culinary gem known for its velvet-draped interiors, $1,000 wine lists, and unapologetic exclusivity. It was a place where appearances mattered almost as much as the money behind them. That evening, as Rolls-Royces pulled up and Chanel heels tapped across the marble floor, Malik Jordan walked in. He wore a basic navy hoodie, gray joggers, and a pair of battered black sneakers. At 6'9", Malik was impossible to miss. Some heads turned, some eyebrows raised, but not out of recognition. Instead, the diners saw a man who, to their eyes, clearly didn't belong. At the front, Chloe, the hostess/waitress known for her cold beauty and sharper tongue, looked up from her podium. Her perfectly manicured nails paused above the reservation list. Her eyes narrowed. "Sir," she said, giving him a quick once-over. "This is El Royale. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Her voice was soft but poisonous, coated in condescension. The older couple seated near the entrance glanced at each other uncomfortably. Others kept watching, intrigued. Malik smiled. Not wide, not forced, just calm. "I'd like a table, please, if one's available." Chloe let out a barely disguised scoff. "This isn't the kind of place where people just walk in off the street. You need a reservation." Malik's voice didn't change. "I understand, but maybe check anyway." She rolled her eyes dramatically, flipped the reservation book open like it weighed a ton, and sighed. "Fine. One guest. In the back, I suppose." Without waiting for a response, she turned and led him through the restaurant, weaving past crystal-drenched chandeliers and hushed conversations about hedge funds and luxury vacations. But Chloe didn't stop at the prime spots. Instead, she marched all the way to the back, just near the swinging kitchen doors, where the smell of bleach lingered, and the light was unflatteringly harsh. She placed the menu down with a deliberate thud. "This table should suit your vibe." Malik sat without protest. The corners of his mouth barely curved. He looked around the restaurant with curiosity, as if he were absorbing its every inch, not intimidated, not impressed, just observing. From a nearby table, Naomi, a fashion executive in a silk-wrapped dress, leaned toward her dinner partner. "Did you see that? She just dumped him there." Her friend shrugged. "She probably thinks he can't pay." Malik opened the menu slowly. Chloe hadn't left. "Would you like me to explain the prices?" she asked, her eyes sliding toward the most expensive item with smug intent. He didn't even glance up. "No need. I'll take the Wagyu ribeye and a glass of Chateau Margaux, 2010. Her mask cracked for half a second. That steak was $370. The wine, $240 a glass. She cleared her throat. "Well, I hope you know how to appreciate it." "I do," Malik replied. "Thank you." The politeness hit harder than a retort. He smiled slightly, and for a moment, just a flicker, Chloe's confidence wavered. She turned sharply and walked away. But what she didn't realize, what no one in El Royale realized, was that this man wasn't just another badly dressed walk-in. He owned the place. The soft jazz floating through El Royale's speakers mingled with murmured conversations and the occasional clink of crystal glasses. Chloe paced the restaurant floor like it was her runway. She stopped at a table of regulars, laughing a bit too loudly at a dry joke. But her eyes kept flicking back toward the man in the corner, the one who hadn't flinched when she tried to embarrass him. Malik sat quietly, his long fingers wrapped around a water glass. His calmness unnerved her more than if he'd argued. She wanted him flustered, defensive, gone. As Chloe passed his table again, she didn't even pretend to look his way. Instead, she muttered to another server, Ethan, loud enough for a few guests to hear. "He ordered the most expensive meal. Bet he'll pretend to go to the bathroom when the bill comes." Ethan glanced uneasily toward Malik. He doesn't seem like the type to pull that. Chloe cut him off. You're too soft. Trust me. Guys like that think ordering big earns them respect. At a nearby booth, Mr. Whitmore, a retired Wall Street broker, narrowed his eyes over the rim of his whiskey glass. His wife, seated beside him, whispered, "She's going too far." Mr. Whitmore didn't reply. He simply watched. Meanwhile, Malik glanced at his reflection in the glass wall behind the bar. He saw what they saw, a man in an old hoodie, shoes that had seen better days, sitting in a place dripping with wealth. And yet, his expression stayed soft. He knew what Chloe didn't. What none of them knew yet. He wasn't here by accident. Chloe reappeared with the steak, balanced carefully on a gleaming silver tray. She placed it on the table with practiced flair, but no warmth. "Here you go," she said, her tone barely masking her disdain. "Hope it's not too sophisticated." Malik looked up and met her eyes. "I appreciate your service." That was it. No sarcasm, no ego, just patience, which made Chloe burn inside. She turned and strutted off, but her act wasn't going unnoticed anymore. Naomi watched her with a sharp gaze. She whispered to her date, "I've eaten here 20 times. I've never seen someone treated like that." "Maybe it's how he's dressed," her date said, sipping his martini. Naomi shot him a glare. "That's the problem." Back in the kitchen, Ethan leaned on the counter, whispering to Chloe. "You know who that is, right?" She raised a brow. "Some fake baller?" He lowered his voice. "That's Malik Jordan. The Malik Jordan, former NBA All-Star. Owns gyms, real estate, and El Royale. Part owner anyway." Chloe stared at him. "No, he doesn't," she snapped. "He'd never walk in looking like that." Ethan didn't push further, but the seed was planted. At the table, Malik took a slow bite of the steak. The flavors burst through, perfectly seared, delicate with truffle notes. He closed his eyes briefly. Not because he was impressed with the food, because he was proud. He'd helped craft this menu with the executive chef. Across the restaurant, Mr. Whitmore rose from his seat and walked deliberately to Malik's table. "Excuse me," he said, offering a courteous nod. "I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say, you've carried yourself tonight with more dignity than anyone else here. It's been a pleasure watching someone handle ignorance with grace." Malik smiled, standing to shake the man's hand. "Thank you, that means a lot." As the two men spoke, Chloe froze near the bar. Other diners had begun murmuring. A couple even pulled out their phones, searching Malik's name. Whispers spread like wildfire. "That's him. He's the one who co-owns the place. Wait, the guy Chloe insulted? She's done for." Naomi set her wineglass down and stood up. She walked straight to Chloe. "You should be ashamed," she said, loud enough for a few nearby tables to hear. "That man owns this place. And even if he didn't, no one deserves to be treated like that." Chloe's face drained of color. The hum of judgment around her grew louder than the music. But the worst hadn't happened yet, because Malik hadn't said a word. Yet. The air inside El Royale had shifted. What had once been polite hush was now buzzing tension, the type of silence that wasn't empty, but charged. A waiter dropped a fork and jumped, glancing toward Malik's corner table like he'd dropped a grenade. Chloe stood by the bar, rooted like a statue. Her skin was pale, her eyes darting across the room as the reality of what she'd done closed in around her. It was Ethan who finally broke the moment. He walked briskly to the back office. Less than a minute later, the restaurant manager, Mr. Langston, emerged, wiping his hands on a pressed napkin, clearly pulled from a private meal. He scanned the room, confused by the atmosphere. Then he saw Malik, and everything about him changed. His back straightened, his jaw set, and without hesitation, he made his way across the floor, weaving through millionaires and celebrities like none of them mattered. "Mr. Jordan, sir," he began, his voice heavy with apology. Malik stood slowly. His sheer size was enough to quiet the last whispers in the room. The calm on his face never changed, not even now. "It's all right, Mr. Langston," he said gently. "I didn't want to make a scene. Just came for dinner." Mr. Langston's eyes darted around. "If I'd known you were stopping in tonight, we would have—" Malik lifted a hand. "Don't worry. I didn't want the red carpet. Just respect. Behind them, Chloe shrank. Her confidence had fully evaporated. Her voice caught in her throat when Mr. Langston finally turned and said, "Chloe, come here, now." She stepped forward like someone approaching a courtroom judge. I didn't know who he was," she said quickly, trying to latch onto some excuse. "He didn't look like—" Malik turned toward her, cutting off her unraveling defense with nothing but a look. His tone didn't change. No anger, just truth. "You don't need to know someone to treat them with decency." Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. "You judged me the second I walked in," Malik continued. "Made assumptions, based on clothes, shoes, posture. You decided I wasn't worthy of kindness, that I didn't belong here." "I didn't mean—" she whispered. "You meant it," Malik replied. "That's what makes it worse. You just didn't think anyone would notice." The diners held their breath. Malik glanced around, locking eyes with a few of them. Some looked away. A few nodded slightly in apology. Then, Malik turned back to Chloe and said the words that would echo long after he left. "Every table in this place costs more than what some people make in a week, but none of that means anything if the people serving them lack character." A slow, soft clap came from Mr. Whitmore, then Naomi, then half the restaurant joined in. Not the thunderous applause of a show, but the somber rhythm of respect. Mr. Langston took a step forward. "Mr. Jordan, Malik nodded once. "We'll talk after close. Whole staff. We need to reset the culture here. This place represents me too, and I don't want my name attached to anything that makes people feel small." Mr. Langston swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." Malik turned, sat down, and continued his steak as if nothing had happened. But Chloe didn't move. She stood frozen, humiliated. She had spent the evening trying to prove she was above him, and now all she could feel was how small she had made herself. At the edge of the room, Naomi took out her phone and sent a quick message to a local blog. "You won't believe what just happened at El Royale." And with that, the spark of something bigger began to spread, outside those velvet walls. By the time Malik took his final bite of steak, the entire energy in El Royale had changed. The opulence of the room, gilded ceilings, velvet walls, imported chandeliers, suddenly felt secondary to the quiet respect now following every move he made. Chloe had retreated to the staff hallway, clutching a notepad to her chest like a life vest. Her hands trembled. She wasn't worried about being fired. She knew she deserved that. What shook her more was that she hadn't just embarrassed herself in front of some rich guy. She had humiliated herself in front of the very owner. In the dining room, servers moved with exaggerated professionalism now. Orders were delivered, with precision. Smiles came faster. Nobody wanted to be the next one exposed. Malik finished his meal and dabbed his mouth with a napkin. He stood slowly and took a quiet stroll through the restaurant. Every step deliberate, every glance respectful. People didn't just look at him now. They listened. His silence, his presence, had spoken louder than anything Chloe could have shouted all night. He paused by Naomi's table. She looked up at him. "I appreciate what you said earlier," Malik said. "Not everyone has the courage to speak up when it matters." Naomi smiled, standing to shake his hand. "You didn't need defending, but I couldn't watch her walk all over you either. We've seen enough of that in this world." He nodded, his eyes warm. "Still, thank you." Behind them, Mr. Whitmore sipped the last of his bourbon. "That man didn't just teach a waitress a lesson," he murmured to his wife. "He taught the whole room something money can't buy: grace." At that moment, Chloe reappeared. Her walk had lost its bounce. Her head wasn't high anymore. She approached Malik slowly, every step like walking into a storm she created. "Mr. Jordan," she began. I'm sorry." He turned toward her. No scowl, no smugness. "Why are you sorry?" he asked. Chloe looked at the ground. "For how I treated you, for judging you, for everything." Malik watched her struggle. She wasn't acting now, there was no audience to impress. "I made assumptions," she continued, "and I didn't care if they were wrong. I don't know what I thought, but I know I was cruel." A long pause followed. Then Malik said softly, "You were. But the question is, will you be better next time?" Her eyes welled up. "I want to be." "Then start now." She blinked. "How?" He looked around. At the other servers. At Mr. Langston. At the customers still. Eavesdropping, pretending not to. Not just by apologizing to me. Apologize to everyone you've ever dismissed for not fitting your version of worthy. And remember, this restaurant isn't just about who eats here. It's about who works here too. Chloe's throat tightened. "I will." Malik gave. A simple nod. No sermon. No threat. Just a moment of truth, delivered the way only someone with real presence could deliver it. Then he turned to Mr. Langston. "I'll stay for the meeting. Staff only. Lock the doors when we're done serving." "Yes, Mr. Jordan," Langston replied quickly. As Malik headed toward the back, one of the junior waiters, a kid named Leo, maybe 19, watched him in awe. "Man," Leo whispered, to another server, "I want to carry myself like that someday." And for the first time all night, Chloe smiled. Not out of pride, but understanding, because she realized tonight wasn't about her being embarrassed. It was about her being rebuilt. The last guests filtered out of El Royale, their conversations hushed, their eyes still flicking to the back hallway where Malik had disappeared. Outside, a black SUV waited, its headlights casting long shadows across the marble floor. But Malik hadn't left. He was still inside, waiting. Not because he had to, but because this mattered more than any exit. Inside the dining room, the transformation was already underway. Tables had been cleared, chairs pulled into a wide circle. The glittering chandeliers now dimmed to a low golden glow. The staff stood in a ring. Waiters, kitchen crew, bartenders, Chloe, even the dishwasher. All facing the one man who had managed to shake the foundation of the place without raising his voice. Malik stood at the center, tall, calm, unmoving. Mr. Langston took a step forward. "Everyone, Mr. Jordan has offered to speak with us tonight. I expect your full attention." No one needed the reminder. Every eye was already locked on Malik. He looked around, took his time, made sure no one felt unseen. "I'm not here to scold anyone," he began, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of authority. "But I am here to make sure what happened tonight doesn't happen again. Not just to me, but to anyone." No one spoke. "You don't need to know a customer's name to treat them like a human being," he continued. "You don't need to see a Rolex or a reservation to know they deserve respect." He turned toward Chloe, not harshly, just directly. "We've all got biases," Malik said. "That's the truth. But unchecked bias? That becomes poison. It rots your judgment, your character, and eventually your reputation." Chloe's hands were clasped tightly in front of her, her knuckles white, her eyes red-rimmed from earlier tears. Malik paused. "Chloe already apologized, and I accept that. But this isn't just about her anymore. This is about all of us." He took a slow step forward. "This restaurant doesn't exist just to serve lobster and champagne. It exists to make people feel valued. Whether they're billionaires or janitors, every person who walks through those doors is worthy of grace." A few heads nodded. Leo, the young server, shifted where he stood, the message hitting deeper than he'd expected. "You know how many times I've walked into rooms where I didn't look the part?" Malik asked, smiling slightly. "Too tall, too casual, too black. I got used to the stares, used to the assumptions. But I never got used to being dismissed. Now even the chefs were listening, arms folded, brows furrowed. That's why I helped build El Royale," he said. "Not just for the suits and socialites, but to prove that elegance doesn't come from chandeliers. It comes from how we treat people." He stopped in the center again. "So here's what's going to happen." Everyone straightened slightly. "Starting tomorrow, we'll hold weekly team reflections. Not to punish anyone, but to talk about service, about mindset, about respect." Mr. Langston nodded in support. "Absolutely." Malik turned back to Chloe. "And you, Chloe, if you choose to stay, will be part of those meetings." Chloe swallowed, then nodded. "I want to." "Good," he replied. "Then let this be a beginning, not an ending." There was a pause. Then Mr. Langston stepped forward again. Anyone have something to say? Leo raised his hand awkwardly. Just, thank you, sir, for not yelling, for showing us how to carry power without ego. Malik smiled at him. That's something you'll learn over time, but only if you listen. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with reflection, growth, maybe even hope. Chloe finally looked up. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me when I deserved it. Malik met her gaze. Just don't waste the second chance. With that, he turned, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. No dramatic exit. No security detail. Just a man who had walked into a restaurant alone and walked out having changed every soul in it. As he stepped into the chilly night, the streetlights flickered against his face. He paused, looking back once at the golden sign above the door. El Royale. It didn't just serve five-star meals anymore. It served humility and redemption. And behind those velvet curtains, a new culture had just been born.